future, except when I showed it to my wife, she couldn't even read it. So that was a waste. Okay. Quick introduction. Helps if you turn the clicker on. I think a lot of people know me, a lot of you people, regulars to sort of WMUG events, you might know me, you may not know me. Quick run through, we're a little bit squeezed on time. Daytime, I'm a principal consultant for PowerOn. Worked with Steve Bowman, who was around earlier, and a couple of other guys are in the room as well.
Did I say Peter that how well was just 10 depends on what you
Didn't mention that one, actually. Nothing like notice. Yeah, I do some various Twitterings. That's my Twitter hashtag handle. You'll generally find me behind the WMUG one as well, so hopefully someone's taking a picture of me because I can't take a picture of my own session. Yeah, various blogs and things like that, more than patches. You'll find stuff on WMUG. I'm an Enterprise Mobility MVP since earlier on this year, and WMUG is my sort of evening and weekend and afternoon type job. Yeah, do blogging, speaking, and I co-wrote with Jerry, wherever he is, the Comfy Manager Troubleshooting book. Quick skin through that one. Okay, Autopilot. What is Autopilot? Is anyone using Autopilot? Yeah, a few. Okay. We'll come to some more questions in a moment. So what is it? I think, has everyone heard of Autopilot? That's probably a good starting place. Most people nodding their head. They've got an idea now. It's been around 12, 18 months, something like that. I've stolen quite a few of these slides, I must admit quite openly, from a guy called Mr. Michael Niehaus, who very openly shared them with me. Yeah, so it's now considered, whereas before when Autopilot was first around, the initial consideration was, this is OSD, is it not? This is a kind of OSD from the cloud, kind of. Yes, it is, maybe. It's now considered more of a device lifecycle management service, I guess. As you can see, the whole process is basically that you procure the device, it goes out to the end user, which is the deployment section. The end user self-serves this. They basically provision the device themselves. And when you're done with that, when they break it, when they're done with it, they leave the company or whatever, you can reset that device back into Windows Autopilot and then re-provision it again and use it again, and all the way through to retirement where you can wipe the device and dispose of. Throughout the whole process in that, really the impact on you guys, the IT admins, is minimal, which is kind of the whole point. Consider it when you get a mobile phone. When's the last time you did a full OSD to a mobile phone, to an iPhone? Yeah? No one. You just don't do it. Yeah? So when you're done with a mobile phone, you get a new person join the company, what do? You give it a factory reset, and then you re-provision it. The process, the theory, is really the same thing. Yeah? The idea being also that the end user can drive this. So you set up a profile to give it exactly the settings that that device needs, and the user can drive that, and they'll automatically be aligned with what you set. Okay, so that's the theory. I'm sure a lot of people know that. It's kind of extended. I did this session a year ago, so 18 months. And it was really just about one specific scenario, but that's developed now. Did anyone go to Microsoft Ignite? I know at least one or two people in here did. You'll recognize one or two of these slides, but they released some more scenarios, or certainly announced them, that you can now use Autopilot with. So the people speak. I like to do a bit of question asking, as you've probably figured out already. And I do this on Twitter as well. So I've already asked who's using Autopilot, who's testing Autopilot or has tested it. Okay, so we're getting up towards a third of the room, maybe. So I asked this question back in August. And I was actually, I'll be honest, a little bit surprised by the results, in that probably about a third of people just really had no interest in it. And that intrigued me a little bit as to why that might be. As with most things that you might consider as new or evolving technology, nearly half of the people are sort of hands in and let's see what this can do for us and let's have a play around with it. So that wasn't probably unexpected. I probably expected a little bit more, if I'm honest, but There were a few gotchas with why people couldn't use it, and I followed up on those, and I've got various bits of information on that. It was mostly to do with bandwidth or political or whatever. And you can see, back in August, this was out probably, so one of the guys at the back might correct me, I think maybe June, July last year, it sort of gathered pace and started becoming a thing. So quite a small number of people actually using this at the moment. Now I also asked, a few weeks ago actually, about a month ago, in terms of imaging your devices, in terms of building your devices, what type of image do you actually use? The landscape has changed somewhat. You may have been using your MDTs, your config managers for doing your full builds, customizing things to the hilt. On that one as well, I got a few key people who sort of got a bit of traction on that one. So I got about 660 responses to that particular one on the right. So that was not a bad number. But as you can see, basically, most people in Windows 10 nowadays are really only using a thin or just basically the core image out of the media. So as you can see where I'm going with this, from an Autopilot perspective, it's the same thing. There's actually very few people, based on that at least, that are really customizing their image. This is not the entire build, their image. There's not that many people doing it anymore, it seems. So the majority are just putting thin, minimal extras on, and these are things like, I don't know, .NET frameworks, report viewers, redistributables, all the usual kind of stuff that most of you guys probably know and use already. So a little bit of an overview of how it works. Again, some of you may know this, but you've got your IT admin, and what does that mean? They basically configure an Autopilot profile up in Intune. Now, this diagram is based around Intune. You don't have to use Intune, but Microsoft would very much like you to use the Intune portal, and that's the go-to place if you want to start doing work with Autopilot now. In theory, you could use Store for Business, you can use Partner Center, and another facility that I can't quite remember at the moment. Essentially, you go into Intune, and we'll show you this in a moment, and configure an Autopilot profile, and that basically defines what happens to this device or what you want to, not customize, but what you want to configure when this goes through its initial out-of-box experience. So I've not actually said, but this is just based around Windows 10, provisioning of Windows 10. So the Autopilot profiles are synced between Intune and Autopilot, which obviously is a cloud service. Microsoft, if you hadn't realized, are in the business of cloud nowadays, it seems. One scenario, and the sort of major scenario, I guess, for a lot of people, is that your hardware vendor, and this could be Dell. At the moment, your hardware vendors, HP, Dell, Lenovo, these are the guys that will do this for you right now. And I believe there's a few more coming down the line. Now, one caveat, I know there's some Microsoft people in the room, and they were a little bit astute about how they mentioned this. Some vendors will charge you for this, okay? Just to be clear on that, some won't. I think Dell won't. I think, is it Lenovo that will? Like 20 quid or something like that. So just to be aware, there is possibly a fee around this. But basically, when you buy your devices from these people, they will take some information from that machine because they built it, they made it, and they will upload it for you into your Autopilot service. So what does that mean? Then up in the cloud, there's some awareness of this device already. What that does then is it does a sync with your Intune, so it effectively pre-stages some accounts into Intune. And that allows you to then assign these profiles to some devices. So you know that when this device comes in, it's going to be in this department or this location or however you configure your profiles. The theory is, and I keep saying theory because I know in practice this is not always the case, that this can then be delivered to your employee, wherever they may be, and they can then unbox that device. Doesn't need to touch you guys. You're cutting out you as the mill person. That person then unboxes it. Let's say it's a laptop, power on, out-of-box experience, just like normal Windows 10. And this is one of the things, a lot of the features for this are actually built into Windows, not at the back end necessarily. That's not to say there isn't anything at the back end, there absolutely is. But a lot of the features, as you get new versions of Windows every 6 months, a lot of the features are in there. So hence 1809, that elusive operating system, has a lot of good stuff in it, if you can get it. So yeah, the user basically self-serves and deploys the device themselves in theory. quick demonstration, and I am absolutely cheating because I've done this demo a few times, and it does work sometimes, and sometimes it also does not work. So absolutely I've cheated and stolen a video for this. So this is the user-driven scenario, and we'll cover the scenarios on the next slide. So the idea is this: imagine this is your user, open the laptop, started it up. Hopefully they can press a power button. I know not all users are the most advanced kind of people in the world. Hopefully they know where they live and what language they're using. So that was a quick skip, but they basically have to skip if you want to use a second keyboard, if you're on the Surface or something like that. Hopefully they can connect to a network. Now, at that point, this particular one's got, it's a Hyper-V, so it's just got pass-through internet connection. Well, there's the caveat, they need an internet connection. Excuse me. If you've got an Ethernet, just plug the Ethernet in. And that will basically work from pretty much wherever you want it to. The scenario that I've heard a few times is this will work in Starbucks. I've never known anyone yet do OSD in a Starbucks. No, I'm not sure why you would. I've got my new laptop, I'm off to the cafe. Well, if you want to, you can, I guess. As you can see straight away there, it's giving you some sort of company branding. There's company branding built into Azure AD, so if you configure the company branding, which, caveat, you must do, it gives them a sort of nice look and feel. Oh, this is a company laptop. Gives you the company domain at the name at the bottom. And they've effectively, at that point, put in their user ID, which is their email address, and the password. And as you can see, and this is sort of real time, this is not sped up or anything. It will go through and you can limit, there's certain settings that you can do, but it will limit what you can see and what you can do there. It goes through the first logon animation. What it's done behind the scenes is it's effectively Azure AD joined that device into your Azure Active Directory, and it's enrolled it with your MDM. And that is, in this case, is Intune, but you don't have to use Intune. I'm sure these guys would love you to use Intune, but you actually don't have to. If you've got auto-enrollment and you're using something else, some lesser product, then you can use that as well. So the idea is that you get your configuration, your settings from your Azure AD. Think of it as, your group policy type settings, and you can deliver applications from your MDM. In this scenario as well, they've got multi-factor auth in place and a requirement for Windows Hello, so it will still honor those kind of settings. So the user has to go through this and set a pin up for using Windows Hello or whatever. If you're not using that, then you don't see that. And that's it. They're at a desktop of what is effectively a company-owned, company-branded, domain-joined, managed device in a couple of minutes. Yeah, let's give it 10 minutes for your average user trying to figure things out, but hopefully you can see the benefit and the advantage of that. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm realistic. There's lots of caveats to this, but for me, that is a really, really good scenario. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, this is Azure AD. I'm not using Azure AD. We've got our on-prem, and I'm sure you already know you've got different capabilities for this now. So these are the scenarios that were announced at Ignite. For me, you've got, it doesn't work on a screen. Rubbish. The technology has failed me. Excuse me, the user-driven mode is available now. That's the one that you just saw. I'm going to skip the second and third just for now. They're basically a way of resetting the device. So if you've already got a device that's out there and you want to use Autopilot, you've got a couple of methods of resetting that so that it will basically reset and boot straight into the out-of-box experience and pick up the Autopilot process as you just saw it. So there's a couple of options around that. You've also got self-deploying mode, which is really for sort of unattended devices, let's say kiosk, digital signage, that kind of stuff. But it's basically, and we'll see that in a minute, it's no touch. You don't have to do anything. And then the two that are in preview, so the middle two are public preview, the end two are a private preview. I'd like to get access to this. I can't yet. They won't let me yet, unless I might speak to some of these people at the back nicely. Yeah. Yeah, or, special friends. Yeah. Yes. I asked Mike Niehaus, but I know he gets tons of emails, and he's quite blunt that he doesn't read all his emails. There was a bit of conversation about his out of office the other day, his out of office message. It basically said something along the lines of, I'll be real honest with you, I'm going on holiday and I'm probably not going to read this when I come back, so send it again later. I'm just going to delete them all. Wouldn't it be nice if you could do that? Yeah, so moving on. Where are we? Autopilot for existing devices. So we've got the hybrid Azure AD join. So this is the one for me that everyone's interested in, yeah? Yeah, we've got our Azure AD, that's fantastic, but we don't really use it and we're not ready to move into that, so we're not at that scenario yet. But the hybrid join is, you'll join it to your on-prem domain. That sounds awesome, and it will do an Azure AD join as well, or register. So you've effectively got management from your on-prem domain, so that's in your domain, it's getting your group policies, and it's registered with your MDM. Yeah? So you can deliver applications and such like. The session from Jerry, you can use Intune to deliver pretty much all kinds of applications to that device now. You don't have to use Intune. It will still register it with it, but don't forget, and here's a key scenario, with Intune, you can push down the config manager client. And if you've got a cloud management gateway, wherever Steve is, from that session, register that with your cloud management gateway, you then tap back into your SCCM. So you can manage that over the internet or on-prem as you see fit. So there's a big sort of, lots of possibilities and scenarios around this. And then you've got this final scenario, which is, I think there was some instructions put out there from Rob York a couple of weeks ago, actually, about it's nicknamed Rip and Reuse. So if you want to basically get your Windows 7 up to Windows 10, Autopilot doesn't really work with it because it doesn't have that sort of information that you require. But what you effectively do, and we'll show you that in a moment, is you basically pre-capture a Autopilot profile, store it in a JSON file, drop it in a task sequence in Config Manager, run the task sequence against your Windows 7, that then rebuilds, reads that JSON file, puts Windows 10 down, and then you go through the Autopilot experience again, as we just saw in the example. Does that make sense? I'd love to be able to go into every single one, but 45 minutes is not quite enough to do everything. Self-deploying demo, I'll quickly run through this, conscious of time. So this is what you might consider kiosk, something along those lines. As it runs through, you can see, so the catch here is if it's got an Ethernet connection, then it's hands-free. If it's not, and it's using Wi-Fi, then you do actually have to have someone jump on and type in the Wi-Fi code and things like that. But effectively, it's hands-free, it runs through. I might speed this up a little bit. It's not the best thing in the world to watch, I guess, which I suppose is the whole point of it, really. You can see it's going straight in, doing the device prep. Same scenario, Azure AD join, MDM enroll. So you're managing that. So the scenario I always think about this is for, I don't know, not that I go to McDonald's that much, but at the back of McDonald's, they have lots of TV screens now. Not the old-fashioned signs that they spin around at 10:30 when they stop serving breakfast. Places like that, I've worked with a lot of retail customers that could get use out of this. You can order in store. I don't know if any of you guys are retail or anything like that, but there's possibilities and whatever scenarios you can use for this, then feel free. I was speaking to a customer about Autopilot a few weeks ago, actually, and this gathered a bit of pace, and you could see he was scratching his head and thinking, you could see the cogs whirring. They pay a company to build their devices for them. Yeah, they've got a build center. So they'll procure the devices, they get shipped to them, they'll build them with an SCCM distribution point on their premises, and then they'll ship them out to where they need to go. So I was telling them about Autopilot and the capabilities, potentially hooking it into your SCCM with Cloud Management Gateway if you want to do that, or just purely getting your applications out with that. And he was immediately thinking, this is going to save me big cash because I don't have to pay that company to build my devices anymore. Possibility there. It pays for itself in that respect. Just for a moment, I thought my screen had disconnected then. Okay, let's whiz through that. We all know what a first login animation looks like now, I think. What it will get to in a moment is a kiosk browser. So just to put the icing on it, I guess. There's a kiosk browser at the end so you can fix it to a certain thing, an application or website or whatever. So that's a possibility, scenario that some people might have an interest in. Nothing worse. All right, I'm going to fast that one. Okay, so this is the one that everyone's interested in. This is where, for most people, they start going, right, well, this is something I can actually use. This is really interesting now. As I said, the Azure AD hybrid join. How does this work? Employee unboxes the device. The hardware ID, Autopilot already knows about through the diagram that we went through before. So that basically, when you do the out-of-box experience, it will contact Autopilot, sort of declare itself, like SCCM does with a MAC address, for example. You know, have you got anything for me? Yes, I know you. I have this Autopilot profile. You must do X, Y, Z. The auto profile gets delivered back down. Does the MDM enrollment. It uses an offline domain join connector. So this is, I guess, the clever bit. Offline domain join has been around a little while now, but certainly my experience was never massively used. But it's kind of sat in their back pocket, and they've decided to use it in this scenario. So we'll do an offline domain join. The device then receives an offline domain join, and it's effectively registered to your corp.net, so your business domain, your whatever domain you're using. That sound good? Does that solve any issues for you from maybe 12 months ago? For me, I think this is an awesome bit of technology. It's, I'm preaching to a room that's probably full of config manager people that customize their devices and builds and all that kind of stuff, but this has certainly got a place. It's absolutely not going to replace OSD in the traditional format, but there are lots of use cases, and if you have a use for this, then it's there. I think it's great. Okay, rip and reuse. I'll skim. I kind of talked about this a little bit. There's some prerequisites for this. You need Windows 10 inside a preview build, 17.6, 7.2, and later. I think this is 18.09 now. But can't quite remember. As I said, the process is that you're basically caching in a JSON file the Autopilot profile, putting it in a task sequence, then applying that task sequence to a Windows 7 machine, which is basically kind of an upgrade task sequence, if you like, for Windows 10. It just then registers through Autopilot, and you can go through this process, so you can send it out that way. There's a caveat with this one, I should mention. This doesn't take any consideration for your data, because you are all on OneDrive. Yeah? We don't use USMT anymore. This is too old-fashioned. You're all on OneDrive. All your data is on there. There's a little sub-thing when I speak to customers now. I'm personally finding that USMT, the requirement for USMT is much less than it ever used to be. When we're doing Windows 10 upgrades, they always say, well, what about data? Do we need to use USMT or something like that? And generally, in my experience, yours might be the same or different. People had the pain of going XP to 7, where the data was everywhere, and they're trying to grab it from desktops and all that kind of stuff. So after we got to 7, they just went, screw this, I'm not doing that again. So they've got the data in order, in my experience. So there's the caveat for that. If you want to go Windows 10 to 7, or 7 to 10 even, don't go the other way. I'll get shouted at. Then, you need to consider the data that's on there. OneDrive is the obvious choice. The admin experience. Let's jump in and have a look at something. How are we doing for time? Okay.
Did you say that was in 1809 now?
I knew you were going to ask me again. I can't remember. This was, unless one of the guys at the back knows, is this in 1809, the rip and reuse scenario? It is. There you go. So let's. How far away are we? It's in private preview, as the lady at the back said. Soon. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't have access to this yet. I would like to get access to this, but I don't know any more than you, really. Next few weeks. Whoa, you heard it first here. Get that tweeted now. So Jerry's interested. Now you've warmed a can of worms now. We're all writing this all down now. Okay, so as I said before, Intune is the place to go for this. You can use some other lesser solutions, but absolutely you should be using Intune to go do this. Can you all see that well enough, by the way? Is that zoomed enough for you? So you should all probably know by now that to get to Intune, you're going through the Azure portal. Let's ignore the old Silverlight horrible thing. Yeah, as with most Microsoft solutions, they're kind of getting it all into one place, which for me is about time because it's painful. Where are we? Device enrollment is where you want to go, and we're looking at Windows enrollment because remember this is around Windows 10. Intune will obviously do your iOS and your Android. This is Windows 10. So if we go in here, you can see you've got a few options. So if we look at the deployment profiles, you can see I've, in Blue Peter style, prepared a few earlier. Let's drill into this one. If we go into the settings on this, you can see actually, if you're familiar with your unattend.xml file, this is rubbish by comparison, no? But actually, this covers most things that you would need. And these kind of things, as the product is evolving, they drop a few more or extra bits and pieces in there, such as that, which I'll cover in a second. Basically, we've got the ability to hide the end user license agreement, show or hide privacy settings. You get a choice if you wish a user to acknowledge these kind of things, hide change account options, and then you can choose whether the user that ends up on that device is an admin or a standard user. Now, you will always choose a standard user, yes? This is the right answer. Maybe you want to let some nice people be an admin. Don't do it to your CIO. So many of my customers now, when we're doing pilots for certain things, they go, yeah, I've put it out to 10 people, and the first one was my CIO. And immediately it fills me with fear. Anyway, I digress again. But we've now got this option. It's limited at the moment to Windows Insider, but I expect this to come quite soon. This was needed, I guess. Before this was around, it would basically generate a unique name and just a random name for your device because there's a whole discussion point around that. Do you need to name your devices? Does it matter? Yes, no. Depends on the scenario, I guess. But you can put some naming conventions in there, and if you can see that, I'm using Sam Erskine's Zoom option. You can put in this kind of thing where you can use PC and you can put a random 4-character name and you could use a serial number. Those are the options that you've got in there at the moment. That may or may not work for you, but those are the options. I couldn't say if they're going to expand that, I don't know. But it's there, it's better than nothing, which is awesome, I think. So yeah, once we've configured our initial profile, we need to assign it. So in Config Manager Land, you've got your task sequence, let's say. You need to then deploy that to a collection. Same kind of concept. You assign that to a group. So we're using Azure Active Directory groups, and often these are going to be maybe dynamic groups. And you remember I said before, when you register your devices or your OEM registers the devices, there's a sync. So your devices will be listed in here. So in this instance, I've just included that. If you want to do an exclude, as Sam said earlier, there's options, fairly standard kind of options in a lot of the Azure stuff. You can exclude certain groups if you want to. What else did I want to cover in there? We've got an enrollment status page. So you saw that in one of the demos. If I go into this example. So you saw when it was doing the build, if you want to call it a build, the configuration phase, there was a bit of information for the end user to say, we're doing this, just bear with us, and you got some kind of feedback. You always used to get that. So you can show app and profile installation progress, yes or no. If you choose no, it just basically sits there with a spinning ring sort of thing, and you don't really get a lot of feedback. This is something that was added, which again is quite nice. It gives you that sort of, don't forget your users are doing this, they want to know it's doing something rather than spinning ring. The idea is to take the load off you. If it's a spinning ring, the likelihood is they're going to ring you. And we don't want to speak to users, do we? Do you want to block the device's use until it's finished doing what it's doing? Now, that's a nice option. Yeah. So if we choose yes on that, we've got a few other options. Well, what if it fails? What if it breaks halfway through? They can allow them to reset it. You can allow them to use it anyway, and we'll sort that out later down the line. And a few other things. I'll not go into everything. If you want to do some custom messaging, you've got that. You can put something up there, your phone number, and then allow users to collect log files. You see you've got some options in there, so that's quite a nice thing. I think probably if I was doing it, I would also always put the enrollment page on, because it's, it's information, and although they are the end user, some information is better than nothing. If I just check back on my slides, device naming, enrollment. Yeah, what I didn't mention in there, if I go to the right bit, if you create a profile, you'll see here you've got the two options of user-driven or self-deploying, and those are the two that I just talked about, and expect the other ones to sort of keep coming down the line. You've also got this new option, which the idea is, whether you agree with this or it's a different thing, the idea is that you can make all your devices capable of using Autopilot, so you can hit yes, and then it will basically enable them, I guess, and which is effectively capturing all the data that you need to use Autopilot. So you've got that capability in there. So I guess that's a nice thing. Some people might not want that. So you decide on that one. Right, let's switch back. Let's not switch back. There's something I'm going to talk about shortly. Reset. So as mentioned, the two reset scenarios. You can effectively reset your machine. There's actually three ways of doing it. You can go in here, reset this PC. I'm not going to do this as a demo, unfortunately. It takes a little while. But, you can reset the PC, and then it will basically, let's talk in old money, like a sysprep, kind of generalizes the machine and makes it ready for use again. Imagine thinking back to the mobile phone, you just do a factory reset. Same idea. Yeah, so something that I haven't actually mentioned, which I would normally mention, is the whole concept of this is you're reliant on the image that is on the machine or the operating system that's on the machine. Okay? So the question was just for confirmation, again for the video, does it rely on the operating system that's already on it? Again, thinking about your phone, you never rebuild a phone, really. So, yeah, it's relying on there being a good operating system. If there's a corruption or something in there, you've got issues, you might not be able to use this. So. Yes, sir. Can you use the recovery pad? I believe so. I'm looking this way for confirmation. Is it using the recovery partition to do the reset? So yeah, something again that I didn't mention, the lady mentioned.
Just a follow-up question on that one, because I think this might be where it's going. So if you built yourself a custom recovery partition and replaced it, is it likely to use that on the reset?
I don't believe so, but I'll take that as a follow-up to find out. Was that your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Normally in a lot of corporate environments, you actually get rid of the recovery partition. So I want to know what the consequences are if it actually... Yeah, I just wanted to know what the consequences are if it actually relied on a recovery partition, because in a lot of corporate environments, you don't want a recovery partition to exist because you're dependent on your infrastructure resetting and rebuilding your environment.
Sorry to okay. Folks, but I want to make sure the question and answers are actually recorded, otherwise it would be very quiet. If I keep this with you, it's on.
Okay.
Thank you very much, thank you.
I was just going to say one thing. We were looking at the...
Testing?
Sorry, yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry.
Regarding the local admin,
yeah.
The only option that we've seen is that you can add a global device administrator to the device if you wanted an IT admin to be an administrator.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way to do it. Is that right?
As far as I'm aware right now, that's, asterisk, this may be subject to change. Yeah. It is, as I've said a few times, this is evolving. If I was to talk about this 12 months, 18 months ago, as I did, a lot of people kind of go, sounds nice, maybe later we'll have a look at it. And if you go back to the graphs that I showed you, nearly half of the people that I polled at least were playing about and having a test with it. And I think we're in that, we're testing it and we're progressing into people will start using this now. That's where I personally think it's at, and that's just my opinion. Certainly in my day job, we're starting getting inquiries about this now. How can we use this? I've done probably 5 or 6 autopilot sessions at various conferences around sort of different places in the UK and Ireland as well now. And without fail, as we've started to see in here, that people have questions. They always have questions, and you can see the cogs whirring because they think, this could be useful. They're not going to use it for deploying all their devices necessarily, but they might have a use case in certain scenarios where they can use this. That's where I see it is.
Just on that one, on the global admin on your device group, that's not me.
Pardon?
On that global device admin group one, are you familiar with the local admin password solutions, the LAPS for domain services? Would that across Azure AD devices ease that problem where you could just give a one-time password for that device? Because there is a session at Ignite where they basically said that LAPS is coming to Azure AD devices, if you've not seen that.
Okay. Yes, where was I? Reset, device reset. So you can reset the device, and as it was quite correctly pointed out, it will effectively retain the membership. So if it's already an Intune enrolled device, it will retain that and the Azure AD registration or join. Reset. So I'll show you. Basically, there's 2 options. You can, if you've got, I'm trying to remember the version, is on one of my next slides. You can basically do a reset from the logon screen. So the reset I just showed you, you can do a reset from the logon screen. You need to be an administrator on that device, but you don't need to log in necessarily. You can do Control Win and R, and it will take you through a reset process, which is much quicker to do it that way. And then you've also got, which is in preview at the moment, if I can remember where to get to it, you can do a reset remotely from Intune. So like if you can do remote wipe kind of ID, you can send that remotely. So I go in here. If I can remember, no, not personal, that's not going to work. No. If I can remember which device I set this up for, I think it's that one. No, yeah, you can see it in grey at least. You've got an autopilot reset, which is in preview at the moment. So what that will do is send out remotely a command to basically reset the device. Yeah. Okay.
What I'd recommend, sorry to interrupt, is just I'd love to record the captures, otherwise it's just silence.
You see what I mean about being questions for autopilot? I'm finding this at
Put your
every
hand up if you
session.
want to interact.
Sorry, Pete. What happens to applications on that device? Do they stay on the device? Does it get wiped off?
I believe it wipes it. Is it a wipe, complete wipe? Because I know...
Speak loudly.
We can repeat. But I know when you do a reset locally, for example, you have a choice.
You get the option, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're turned off.
Okay. It does wipe the applications. However, you just mentioned the enrollment status page where you see the apps getting installed.
Yeah.
So when it goes through the reset, it retains the MDM enrollment and the Azure Active Directory join, but it reinstalls the applications that were pushed from Intune. Or applications or policies, everything comes back down.
Okay. There you go. We'll give you some clue as to who this mysterious lady is at the back soon. Because I realise we've not actually declared this lady. It's our secret weapon.
Cheers, buddy.
Yes, so reset scenarios. So let's switch back here. Are we on for time? Yeah, 5 minutes. So let's go back to this. You know, I can do all kinds of things with magic technologies, but PowerPoint, Word, Excel, forget it. No good. Okay, let's move on. So the reset scenarios, as I just mentioned, the local one, there you go, 1709 and above. I'll not dwell on that, we've already covered that one. But as you can see, there's a remote reset as well, which is a new thing for 1809. Where it will retain the AD join and MDM enrollment, okay, which is quite a nice option. I just want to quickly cover these off. I've not got too much time, but how can we, this is an interesting thing. So what I've shown you is in the console, and I've shown you the kind of manual, the ways of doing this kind of thing. But in reality, if you're going to do this for 100 machines or 1,000 machines, you're not going to do it in a console necessarily. So how can we use this? So, you know, there's different options. PowerShell is one. If I flick over here, now you need to get some kind of information from those machines in the first place. And I have covered this in another session. It might have been a WMUG session, so you might have already seen this. But there's effectively 3 pieces of information. I'm not going to go through the whole how you use that, but you basically run it. You're generating a serial number. You're generating, nope, can't stop that. You can see this, you're generating this kind of product ID. And then this one is a hardware hash. It's quite a big one, so we've had that store in a text file. So this is effectively the unique identifier, if you like. So that is the type of information that if you're using the OEM scenario, that's what would be, you know, uploaded into Autopilot. And what you can do, if I just switch back on there, I always challenge myself to do this backwards, just for fun. If you wanted to do it in here, the manual way, you can effectively, where is it? I've lost. There. No, you're right, it's devices. Yeah. We're getting there. I don't normally do this bit in the demo, and I've decided to do it for some reason, and I've tied myself up. See what I mean about turning around and trying to do it rather than on the screen? What an amateur. Did I mention I'm an MVP now? So there, yeah, if you generate a CSV from that, you basically put those pieces of information together in a CSV file. There's a specific format. It's not rocket science, but you basically import it in there, and that's the kind of information that's being done. No, not him again.
It's me again. If you didn't know, and you're using Config Manager across your estate as well, and you want to start doing that swap,
Whoa, hold your horses.
all right, I'll shut up.
Stealing thunder.
You're going reporting, are you?
I have to work with this guy. It wasn't my idea to invite him. You've also got this thing called Microsoft Graph. Does anyone know what Microsoft Graph is? Has anyone heard of Microsoft Graph? I had this last time I did it. Probably not even half of the people knew what Microsoft Graph was. Let's make it simple and say it's an API. It's a way of getting information, querying information, that kind of thing. And you've got options to use Autopilot through Graph now. I'll quickly run on to this because this was an hour session that's been squeezed into 45. There. Let's go that way. Did you actually see any of this? I just realised I did it on the wrong screen. What an amateur again. Yeah, the serial number, product ID, and the hardware hash. Did I show you the hardware hash? No, I didn't show you the hardware hash either. Like so. Yeah, it's not something that you just, write on the back of a fag packet, that one, I'm afraid. Graph-wise, let's quickly whiz through this. If I can, this screen is not great for presenting. There we go. So you need to, it was all going so well. You need to have the Azure AD module enabled. And I'm now thinking, have I got this enabled? Because I've switched devices since last time I did this. Let it go. No, I haven't got it. Nice. Okay, once you've done that, you need to, as you can see, let it run. You need to basically install the module for Autopilot, import it, make a connection, and that will prompt you as though you were logging into the Azure portal, for example. It'll prompt you with some credentials. This is on the slide as well, which you can have the slides. Fail to prepare, prepare to fail. So as that runs through, yeah, you basically import the Autopilot module, make a connection, and then you can do get Autopilot devices, which will give you a list. So I'm just showing you some examples of how you can go query this through PowerShell or through what other sort of development method you may prefer. You can do all this kind of thing. And then you can import your profiles, basically. Sorry, no, you can import your list, your CSV list of all your devices. So if you've got these extracted into some CSV, then you can do that as well. All right, let's move on very quickly because I'm way behind. Do you recognise this, Mr. Steve Beaumont? In Config Manager, one of the things I do like about this, I should say actually, in terms of Autopilot, initially when this was brought out, as I said earlier, people went, oh, this is OSD from the cloud, kind of. So surely this is going to make SCCM redundant in some ways. What I like is actually working the two together, as I think Rob said earlier. And there's no doubt going to get covered a little bit later on. These two are really sort of working together. So there's a report into Config Manager now. I think it dropped into 1806, didn't it? If someone can nod and confirm for me. It was in preview before that. It's basically gathering the data that you need and generating your report like that. And because, wonderful SQL reporting services, you can export that into a CSV. You've got a ready-made CSV with all your devices in. So you can then upload that if you wish to do that. I did put a user voice request in that we could maybe scope that on a collection. I can understand why it's not been done, but it'd be nice if you could just scope that on a collection if you don't want to use every single thing with it. Some of the prerequisites. So I know we've sold you the dream. This sounds awesome. We're going to go away and do this now. You need a few things, as you can probably imagine. Let's run through it. 1703 higher, you need basically an enterprise type version. That'll be Pro. Enterprise Education, Pro for Workstations is another one. The beauty of all this is that it just really uses normal internet connections. You don't need special ports like IBCM type things. You can just basically do it over a 443 and 80. So that's the device, just contacting the internet like anything else, really. Excuse me, I'm not going to go into the licensing because anyone know about licensing in this room? If you recognize one of those, then you've got this capability. You basically need Azure AD Premium is the sort of key one. And if you've got EMS and E3, E5, that kind of thing, then you've got it. Autopilot White Glove, very, very quickly mention this because I'm almost at the end. They dropped a thing called White Glove just as like a, what's to coming next? Like at the end of a TV episode, they say, and next week. So this is the next thing. So this is all great. We've got our operating system down. It's domain joined. It's got everything on it. What we're missing? Well, we've got no applications on this. So you can send that with your SCCM, with your Intune. White Glove it's actually a scenario that I discussed in another conference in Birmingham a few months ago, and then they said this afterwards, so I thought, my idea that. Your vendor, let's say Dell is the example, gives you the device, they send it to you, and it's just got their bloatware on it that we all love. The concept is that they'll put your applications on for you as well. So when you get it, it's got your applications as well. Yeah, it's very simple. I don't know much more about that at the moment, but in the interest of time, I just wanted to give you a little teaser as to what will come, what's down the line, because that may have been a doubt in a lot of people's mind. Useful links. Generally, people put links on the end. I got too many Autopilot links. I just kept gathering them in a OneNote, so I basically put them in a blog post, and that's a link to my blog post, which has just basically got a ton of links in it. So feel free to snap that, or you'll get the slides, or go on my blog, morethanpatches.com. It's on there. And that's it. I am done. Any